Welcome, everybody, to Bike University for May 23rd. My name is Edward Ero, and I'm the coordinator for Bike U. Tonight, we have a very special program with three of our members who are part of the TCBC Tuesday Tuneup ride that celebrated their 25th anniversary last year. Our speakers will be Dick Stardick, Jim Angle, and Larry Miller. Before we get to the program, however, I have a few short announcements. This is the sixth session of Bike U for the 2024 TCBC ride year. If you have not heard the previous sessions on bicycle commuting, bicycle maintenance, randonneuring, the Minnesota Bicycle Alliance, and free bikes for kids, as well as all the sessions from the 2023 ride year, which include programs on Ride with GPS, the Minneapolis Public Schools Bike Education Program, winter bicycling, fat bikes, and then all the sessions from the 2022 year. I won't read them. So we've developed a really good library of programs. And on the rides I'm on, I usually make announcement. It's a good time when it's like a rainy day or anything to go in and look at these sessions. They're all just get off the main page of the TCBC, go to Bike U, and you can just scroll down. And there's a link to each of the sessions on YouTube. I want to thank our TCBC Bike U Council of Regents, which includes John Benda, Tim Rand, and Dan Miller, for their work. If anyone else would like to join the council, please contact me, as we welcome others to participate, and we want the council to be representative of the entire club. And additionally, we want to have cover subjects that you all want to see. We are specifically looking for a woman to join the council to have some gender diversity. So if you are interested, please contact us. During the session tonight, please keep your audio muted, but keep your video on so that we can show who is in attendance. Remember, we are recording. If you don't have yourself on mute and make any noise, it switches to your video, and thus the recording gets messed up. Excuse me, there will be a question and answer session after the presentation. But during, but during the meeting, you can enter questions in the Zoom chat function. We will be monitoring those questions and make sure they get answers during Q&A. Please do not interrupt the speaker. I would like now to introduce our speakers, who will all introduce themselves. So I turn this over to our Tuesday Tuneup group.
Okay, I guess I can probably, much of this is what I've got in here. I think your bio. Okay, well, let me start. I'm Larry Miller, one of the many riders that do Tuesday Tuneup. I've been doing this ride since September of 1998. The reason I know that is because I retired September 1st of 1998, and that's the first time that my mornings were open after that to be able to do morning rides. I've done 461 Tuesday Tuneups. I keep notebooks and spreadsheets on a lot of things: oil changes, maintenance, bike miles, checkbook, ledgers. So that's how I happen to know how many rides I've done, because I've got books on it. This ride, or Tuesday Tuneup, started as an AYH ride in the beginning, and then was transferred to TCBC and HBC when they were officially created. I think TCBC was official in 2000. Chuck Sunder turned this ride over to a group, well, you'll hear from me here, in 2013, and he gave me 2 years before I'll give up doing it because I'm too old, or can't do it anymore. Oddly, I'm still doing the ride at 85. And Susan Vaughn, Chuck's longtime partner, girlfriend, told me that Chuck gave me the title Larry Leadout. And this comes up every week that I'm there for me to start the rides. So I guess that's what I do. But I don't, until recently, and talking to Susan Vaughn, I didn't know when that Larry Leadout title came. It just seemed to happen. So the only other thing that probably of note, there was a hotline before the computer website, and I was the voice of the hotline for 10 years. Then the website took over. So that's kind of filling in on my beginning with the club.
Okay, thank you, Larry. My name's Jim Angle, and I'm one of the ride leaders on Tuesday Tuneup. Just a brief bio. I was born in Nebraska and have lived in the Twin Cities for the past 50 years. Retired in 2012, but had joined TCBC back in 1999 and became a ride leader in 2005. Mostly I have led rides on the west side out of the Lake Minnetonka area, Long Lake and Wayzata. I joined the group that is involved with this ride in 2013 when Chuck Sunder said he didn't want to do it anymore and thought a group would be an excellent way to divvy the work up, because he was a very good ride leader. He drove the route every week before the ride to make sure it was usable. There weren't any roads all of a sudden closed. And Lord knows we've seen that in our years of doing this ride, that all of a sudden something pops up. So anyway, I want to do some of the more of the history here of the ride, and then Dick's going to help us with some of the more recent events of the ride. First of all, I just wanted to read a note from Sue Blum. She couldn't be here tonight, but she did send this about Chuck and the ride. She says she loved biking with Chuck and shared his approach to rides. He wanted to get a workout, but wanted to enjoy the ride. He was such an amicable, easygoing guy. When others would fret over details or rules, his response was, "It's just a bike ride." He wanted to exercise, share time with friends, and then afterwards attend to other activities. Though his favorite post-ride pastime was to sit by the pool and enjoy a beer. He was methodical, but enjoyed variety. He owned numerous jerseys and donned them in order rotation. He always checked out routes beforehand and adjusted accordingly. He provided a variety of routes, including a couple of lesser used end-of-season routes, end-of-season shorter ones to take advantage of the Indian-style summer days. Chuck was a guy that everybody absolutely liked. How could you not? And we all enjoyed his Tuesday Tuneup rides. They offered hills without being a killer, great scenery and neighborhoods, a very good workout, but enough energy remaining to enjoy the rest of the day. Always on Tuesdays, the tune-up was the ride to count on and the highlight of the week's schedule. He switched from A, B to B as his pace and that of others changed over time. It coincided with his philosophy to get a workout, but to do it enjoyably. Just a little bio information about Chuck. He rode virtually all over the world. Highlights include he had 4 other friends that lived down in the Southwest, and they did 10 different rides over the years in Arizona. He loved Colorado. He rode in Cuba. I don't know if any of you remember David Gebner years ago, organized a ride in Cuba when you couldn't fly directly to Cuba from the US because of our relations. So they hopped a flight to Canada and then went to Havana. Chuck's only comment was he said he got tired of rice and beans. New Zealand, he did the South Island, several days of rain in the tropical rainforest. Said that was beautiful, but the roads were narrow. If you've been to the South Island, it is tropical rainforest down there, so that's one of the drawbacks. And then he and Susan, his longtime friend, they followed the Tour de France by bike, and one day they were able to ride Alpe d'Huez. I think the most extraordinary trip that Chuck ever did was with his buddies from Arizona, and they went down the entire Baja of California from San Diego to Cabo, which is over 1,000 miles. They self-supported, they rented a van. It was about a 2-week trip. They always stayed in hotels, but they did use their road bikes. And according to Susan Yvonne, they really didn't have a route in mind when they headed off. And there was one time when they got in a brush with the federales and had to pay the federales off. I think it's kind of a neat story, but you know, I talked a little bit to Doug Dickel today, who's ridden all over the country. And he said he'd never contemplate going down the Baja this time. He said, you need a gun. I mean, you know, it's just not safe with the rise of the cartels. But it's amazing because they did that and everybody got through it fine and there weren't any problems. Chuck, just more specifically on the ride, he lived in the Lake Minnetonka area and actually was married and raised his kids out there for many years. And it was really his riding playground. He knew that area like the back of his hand. Chuck chose Tuesday because he typically rode weekends and took Monday off and wanted to ride Tuesday. Routes were built around having a good cup of coffee and a pastry mid-ride. And Chuck really liked a good cup of coffee. It was pretty important. You know, my comment was, why ride if you can't eat and get some caffeine, right? Originally, he had 440-mile, and he always used this term, Larry, you know this, sensational routes that rotated weekly. He thought multiple routes made for better rides. He could never, this is from Susan Yvonne, he could never understand how people could do the same route over and over again every week. So he felt like it was better for, I mean, that was where he was and it was better for the riders. And I think this is one of the real strengths of this ride, that he felt that way. And he ultimately developed 4 routes initially. I think the other thing about doing that is, and we'll put the routes up in a minute here, but Lake Minnetonka had a very good geography for what he wanted to do. There are several small towns around the lake that are 10 to 30 miles from Minnetonka City Hall where we start. And really going up virtually any direction, northwest, straight west, or southwest, you can find that kind of geographical configuration. Chuck liked the picturesque scenery with the occasional challenging hill. As we all know, the rides have some challenges. I just want to do a brief survey of the 4 original routes. All were 35 to 40 miles with 1,100 to 1,500 feet of climbing. Dick, if you could put up routes 1 and 3 to start with. Okay, routes 1 goes out to Blackwater Coffee, and it's kind of the northerly approach to that rest stop. You can see where the fork in the maple flame. Yeah, the fork and the knife are. And Dick, why don't you put up the next one, number 3? Number 3 goes to the same rest stop, but it approaches it more from the south. There we go. And so we start out on that one out of City Hall, but we go through Excelsior and then go up to north to Maple Plain. So virtually most of the route is separate from Route 1, but since they go to the same rest stop, I thought I'd talk about those first. And then Route 2, Dick, if you could put that up, is the next one. And that looks like a fish. And that one goes out to Mound. So here we have the first 2 we just looked at go to Maple Plain. Now this one goes to Mound. And again, you can see how it works itself around the lake, which makes the routes very picturesque. And then Dick, if you could put up Ride 4. Ride 4 is kind of, it's a really neat route. It's actually a lot of climbing in it, but probably one of the prettiest parts of it is we go by an area called Howard's Point, which is a little village area right down on the water there. And, it's just, there's a lot of boats there. And then we come back to some really pretty picturesque neighborhoods on Birchwood Road. So anyway, these were the 4 original routes that Chuck started the ride with. Now the next one, Dick, if you could put it up, is Route 5. And Route 5 is kind of unique because we go down to Eden Prairie for the rest stop. You can see it down below there. And this was created more recently. I think it was more like 2010, sometime in there, because what happened was, and you can't really see it on the map, but in Eden Prairie, they paid a whole lot of money to redo an old house called the Smith House. And originally that was our rest stop, and that was a really nice Dunn Brothers. And it's a beautiful house. I wish I had a picture of it. It's Queen Anne style house. And if you get a chance, it's worth an extra trip just to go down and see it. And what's in there now is a rustica. And we had some people that were unhappy because they had 10-cent coffee, but it was really rot gut. So we moved it back to we moved the rest stop back to a Caribou up there. I think Larry was responsible for that. So anyway, let's see if I have anything else. And then Route 6, Dick, if you could put that up. This is another route that goes out to Mound, and Roger Figbaum and Tom Bricks discovered that there was a new road that had been put through. It's called Game Farm, and it went out west and then north of town, and it's a beautiful, thank you. It's a beautiful route out there, and very picturesque, a lot of horse farms and some really good hills, of course. And so we started going out there, and basically we go to Mound for the rest stop, and then we come back a different way than route number 2, which is the other one that goes out to Mound. Okay, let's see. The other thing I wanted to just mention briefly, thank you, Dick, I'm done with that. The other thing I just wanted to mention briefly is back in August of 1998, the way the route became a TCBC route. Susan Yvonne with Chuck's OK put this ride on the TCBC schedule at the same time it was on the HBC schedule. And she wanted to get road mileage or mileage from TCBC for doing the ride. And Chuck got a lot of negative feedback when he did that. And shortly thereafter, let's see, so that happened in May of 1998. And by August of 1998, Chuck had switched the ride to just a TCBC ride. And from then on, it was our ride. So anyway, I'll turn it over to Dick. I just wanted to thank Sue Blum, Susie Vaughn, and Doug Nelson for their help with some of these items.
All right. Well, thanks, Jim, for and Larry for all that great historical perspective. I'm a relative newcomer to leading Tuesday Tuneup and being a regular on it. I can't match Larry's numbers on how many Tuesday Tuneups I've done. You know, I've been a club member for quite a few years. I retired in 2018, and one of the day rides then that I was drawn to right away was the Tuesday Tuneup, because it was reliably happened every Tuesday, 10 o'clock in the morning. And you know, a lot of my TCBC riding buddies also did the Tuesday Tuneup. So that kind of got to be a regular ride on my schedule, and started doing it every time, and eventually became one of the rotating ride leaders on the ride as well. So a little more recent history of the ride. As Jim had mentioned, Chuck Sunder decided in 2013 that a weekly ride like that was just too much for one individual to happen, and recommended you know, having several ride leaders, and he went about acquiring those, and there'll be more on that later. But this is kind of how we're organized with our you know, current a set of ride leaders. You know, we share the load, and that was a real advantage to the new ride leaders that came on board back in 2013, and it works really well for us now, and it's kind of you know, works naturally by consensus. And we're very fortunate to have so many really motivated leaders that are totally willing to pitch in, you know, spread the load around, and it, you know, avoids burnout on the part of any of our leader team. So that's a really good quality of the Tuesday Tuneup. And we always have a pre-season meeting. You know, the Tuesday Tuneup starts first Tuesday in May and runs all the way through the end of October. So we meet in April sometime to discuss the routes. And it used to be, before I was part of the leader crew, everybody would meet at Lomdal Donuts. I think I've got that right, Jim. And that's where the meeting would happen. But then Zoom came along, And that made it really convenient for us to do our preseason meeting, and it didn't matter which part of the country any one of us was at that time. So that's what we do now. And we talk about the routes themselves, what's the anticipated road construction. Are there route changes we'd like to make just on the basis of safety, or to make them flow better, add scenery, etc. And then we just divide up between us who's going to lead what ride for the whole season. So that the whole season of rides gets posted, with the ride route that's going to happen, and who the leader is. This works out really well for us. And then we've agreed that if any ride is canceled due to weather, then when we go to next week, rather than repeating that week again, that week's ride, we just move to the next week's ride, and that keeps our schedule maintained, as we originally planned it at our preseason meeting. And so that works really well, as well. And just having multiple leaders really makes things flexible. If new plans come up, or if somebody is ill or whatever, we can always call on one of the other leaders to fill in if we need someone to do so. That works out really well too. And as is generally the case, all of us who are leaders tend to be regulars on the ride too. So, we're there every week. So if there are any changes needed, there's almost always somebody available. And I think all of us just like to ride the ride on a weekly basis because it's a great ride. We got these 6 great routes, and there's a lot of camaraderie because we have a lot of regulars, and we try to be very welcoming to any newcomers as well. But it's always a great group of people that participate, and that's really what makes it a lot of fun. And then just recently, we've added a B ride category, because it's typically been, it has been historically for many years, listed on the calendar as an AB ride. And so we're hoping to make more B riders aware that there's a B group there that they can ride with as well. Because the Tuesday Tuneups kind of had a reputation as a fairly challenging ride with a lot of fast riders, but there's generally a B group there as well, and so we kind of want to get the word out on that, because probably most of us that are ride leaders are kind of in the B plus category. So one of the challenges that we encounter with our ride routes comes down to bridges, because there's many bridges in the Lake Minnetonka area. And there's been a number of times where Bridges have been closed for the entire season for complete renovation. And back in 2022, we had one section of road, North Shore Drive, just north of Crystal Bay, where there were not one but two bridges that were closed virtually the entire season for renovation, and that affected affected 5 of our 6 rides. So at the beginning of the season, we had some major scrambling to do to reroute all of the 5 rides around that area where the bridges were closed, and do so in a way that maintain the typical mileage of the rides, and then also so that that our changes didn't duplicate each other too much as well. And so we went to work on that on a teamwork basis and came up with 5 routes that worked quite well for that season, and avoided those bridge closures. And so every season there's some sort of road work going on. This one, no exception. And our team of leaders and some of the other regular riders that know the area, we identified the problem areas and came up with alternate routes for those areas for this season as well. Then a little bit about our ride leader history. The original ride leaders that joined Chuck to lead the Tuesday Tuneup included Jim Joy, who was known for his maps and routes that he made on the Delorme software platform. And I guess that was a great help at the time, because no one else knew how to do that. And then there was John Gesme, and he wrote the ride description that's on the calendar and is still largely largely today as he originally wrote it. And then we have Tom Bricks, and he lives in the area and has much local knowledge and very aware of any road closures or construction issues in the area. And then of course Jim Engel became a ride leader as well, and is also very knowledgeable about the area. And then in 2015, our late departed friend Pete May became a ride leader, and he revised the routes and converted them over to Ride with GPS. And then also previously routes 2 and route 6 were identical before the rest stop, and Pete revised those 2 so they both go out a different way, and so that route 2 goes out a different way, and is very scenic as well. And of course, Pete was a master map maker for TCBC, and he went over all of the 6 routes and made some significant improvements, and as previously mentioned, put them all in Ride with GPS. And then we had Chuck Nelson join us in 2018, and he's had a steady presence ever since. He rarely misses a Tuesday Tuneup as well, and brings up a lot of safety issues, with routes, and was instrumental in adding the B option as well. And Dennis Evans also joined us. And Dennis, as we all know, is very good at prep for the rides. Drives the route the day before as a leader every time, and has motivated a lot of us to do likewise. And then Katie Engel joined in 2020, and is good at riding sweep and counting heads, and being another very good ride leader as well. I myself joined in 2022, and I tried to help with reroutes around construction and address safety issues. And I've helped get the B ride version on the schedule as well. So our riders, like I mentioned, they're really a great group, and there's a lot of them very familiar with the area that will give us heads ups on closed roads, and these are all really good folks, and that know how to ride in a group, and all having the great camaraderie and the really good turnouts of people that the Tuesday Tuneup attracts is what makes it a really fun ride. And I'm really glad to be one of the leaders, and it's just a regular ride on my schedule. A lot of great friends that do the ride as well, and it's just, I think the planning and camaraderie and variety of routes are what make the Tuesday Tuneup the great repeating ride success that it is. And that's all I've got.
Okay, Jim or Larry, did you have anything else to add? I had a few questions. And if anyone else, we can open it up to the floor too.
I don't have anything else.
Okay. Oh,
Well, I was just going to add, that this has probably been this repetition, but I was a ride leader for many years as well, and I understand the commitment. Chuck did this every week for 6 months for 13 or 14 years. I mean, incredible. And because of the format that we currently have, that's what keeps this ride going, because no one is overburdened, but we get the rides and the camaraderie, and it still keeps going. And maybe I'll hit 500. We gotta live a while. But I wanted to add one thing that just came up, just to honor Pete May. Pete May was the graphic artist for the Ironman bike rides. He was the graphic artist for the atlas that was put out for, I don't know, TCBC or AYH, but he put out an atlas with all the maps in the way he drew them, I mean, professionally. And so those atlases are still out there that, and he was the creator of every single map. So I just want to point that out. Incredible person, incredible job that he did. So that's it. Unless you want me to mention, I was the voice of the hotline for 10 years.
It actually, this is some really great history that's been put together. I did want to ask you about the hotline, but before that, have you always started the ride at the Minnetonka City Hall? So has that always been the start area?
Yep, yep,
I
it's
believe
always
so.
started there.
Yeah,
I don't
nice.
know, I don't know the history of why Chuck started there, other than he did live in Minnetonka and maybe it was sort of natural in his mind, but yeah, so.
Okay. Jim, we lost your video. So the ride's been going on. This is now what, the 26th year. You celebrated 25. Was that continuous? Did COVID affect you all, or did you still have some solo rides that use the routes?
I didn't ride in 2020, I don't believe.
Yeah, we had solo rides. Pete May put some solo rides in.
Okay.
There was kind of a, if you remember how we did that, it was like 2 times a week you could put solo rides in. They had 2 different times they were all put in, and I think he did put them in several weeks on, I can't remember how it was, Tuesday or Friday or what the days were you could put the rides in, and people had a week to do them. So yeah.
So the why I was so interested in this ride, I just started doing it, I think last year before. It was after COVID and when I retired in 2019. But it's such a good model of a ride. What advice do you have for other ride leaders? Because I see sometimes people put on form, hey, I can't do the ride, can someone help? Where you don't have that as a problem. What advice would you give to other people putting together rides or maybe using this type of model?
You just gotta find a team, I guess, to work with you that like doing whatever ride you're doing, and are willing to share the load, and that's kind of the beauty of our approach.
Yeah. So Larry, I've got to hear, you had said before this hotline, this was predated me coming into the club. So what was the hotline and how did you become the voice of TCBC on the hotline?
Well, initially, I don't remember the woman that did it, but she recorded the hotline for the entire week. And the initial, I think the schedule came out for the entire month for all the rides, and she would record a week at a time, and you had to listen to it a week at a time. If you wanted to listen to Thursday, you had to listen to each of the days to get up to Thursday. And I can't remember now. I'd have to see her to remember her. Somehow I suggested doing the hotline. I was able to work with the company that did it, that allowed me to enter the schedule a day at a time. Well, I entered the week at a time, but I entered them a day at a time. And when you went to the hotline, you could press a button 1, 2, 3, or whatever to get to the particular day that you wanted to listen to. So that made it going to the hotline a lot easier. So I think I recorded twice a week, and I kept doing this for 10 years, and I think I had mentioned this to you. When in 2001, I went to China. I had my schedule with me. I was able to call on a paid telephone without having to pay, oddly enough, to about 25, 30 numbers to get to the United States, the hotline recording number. And I would do this even in China. I was able to record the rides. The rides, when they were given to me, were not in paper form. They were sent by the internet. So I had them online, and I was able to take each of the days and take out the fluff so that I'm not saying a lot of stuff, just the basics. So I printed up my own version of what I was going to say, and I carried that with me wherever I went. So that's my story with the hotline. But then, of course, once the website took over, that eliminated the hotline. But I love doing it.
So Larry, just one question off of that. Was it just rides from the schedule that you put in there, or were people able to add other rides that weren't on the schedule? You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I don't think I could add rides in. I don't recall being able to do that. Again, I created my own script, I guess, taking out everything except the basics and printed all that, and then that went with me. If I'm on vacation anywhere, I would call in to the hotline, and somehow I could do it on a phone without having to pay long distance, or especially from China.
It's just such interesting history and how the clubs have evolved and how you all as a ride have evolved too. So Dick, you had mentioned that, you know, one of the challenging things was obviously closure of bridges. That was probably one of the more challenging, having two. Any other types of things that were challenging? Again, sort of talking about this kind of model, has communication always been good? And then on the flip side, you know, what's been the most rewarding for you all for this ride? Dick, I'll turn it over.
Well, I can start out speaking to that. Again, yeah, it's you know, just staying on top of road construction and being able to reroute as necessary, and communication between our group of ride leaders has always been really good, and so we generally jump on top of that, and you know, we're always out there driving the routes and stuff too. And for me, I guess as a ride leader, I just think it's gratifying to have a really well vetted route for people to where they can just go ride and have a good time, and not have to worry too much about you know, any construction or road blockage issues, because you know, our ride leader team is generally on top of that.
I would just say for me, a lot of what I enjoy is the camaraderie of the ride. And, you know, not only the ride leaders, but just, you know, we have a lot of repeat riders, and it's fun to see everybody and ask them what's going on, and, you know, who's going where. And, you know, I just enjoy that and look forward to Tuesday.
Well, I do the ride. I have to keep the numbers going. I'm just going up. I mean, I'm not as fast as I used to be. I looked at my numbers and my averages are going down, but I can still ride the miles, just not the speed. And of course, the only problem, well, I ride it for the camaraderie and the fact that it takes place every Tuesday when it's not raining. And of course, they have Larry lead out. I do that. I can still ride, but the fun group, the AB group, when they get tired of me out there, which is usually about 2 miles, they'll pass me and drop me, and I expect this, but it doesn't bother me. I know all the routes by heart, so I do the ride, and either the second group will catch me, or I'll ride with them after the rest stop. And like, again, it's the consistency of the ride and the distance. I don't, when I ride from home, I don't get to ride 35 to 40 miles. I have to be really creative from my house to get that kind of distance. And by myself. When I'm with a group, that's the inspiration. So I like the people in the group.
So let's open it up. Anybody else that's part of our studio audience tonight that has any questions for the TCBC Tuesday Tuneup Ride leaders? Anybody else have any questions or comments? Okay. I think everybody's being a little...
Who are Karen, they won't pop in.
So I'm gonna close up since there's no questions. Thanks again, Dick, Jim, and Larry for speaking to us. Some really good information on how to have a long-term successful TCBC ride. Also, a big thanks to all of you for attending tonight. The recording will be up shortly after it is uploaded to our TCBC YouTube channel. The link will be in the notes for the session on the Bike U webpage, so it'll be up tomorrow. And I usually put a post on the forum and also on our Facebook page. The TCBC Bike U Council of Regents is working on other sessions for the fall. Each year we take off the summer, so like the academic year, we'll be riding our bikes in the evenings, especially in the summer. So if you have, we'll be back in September. If you have other ideas for programs, please write to us at bikeu@biketcbc.org, and the council will discuss them in our next meeting. And remember, I'm looking for other members, especially a woman that would like to join. That would be great for the Council of Regents. Thanks again for attending, and we hope to see you all again soon.